Welcome, tender hearts and tireless seekers of what hides between smiles and spotlights, to your haven where facades fade and feelings speak. Welcome back to Whispers of Turkish Stars, the corner where we lean in close and listen to the murmur of love stories that make and unmake the dreams of a nation. Today, the horizon above showbiz looks muted, as if a cloud slid between us and the glitter. We opened our eyes to a tremor that rippled through every feed and headline, a shock that left fans clutching their chests and blinking back disbelief. For days that felt like winters, the passageways of gossip chilled with talk of distance, of silence, of absences nobody wanted to name. People murmured that something had shifted between the magnetic Gökberk Demirci and the luminous Özge Yağız. There were mentions of looks that didn't quite meet, of calendars that never overlapped, and yet no one dared to imagine the story could be approaching its last page. And then reality, stern and unadorned, knocked. What many feared crystallized with the frost of an official voice. Before we sink into this sea of sighs and trace each wave, stay with us the way you always do. Subscribe to Whispers of Turkish Stars so nothing slips past, ring the bell so your heart is the first to hear it, and if our way of telling the truths behind the glitter touches you, leave your love with a like. If you wish to step even closer into our little newsroom's heartbeat, the join button awaits like a secret key. Settle in, or perhaps brace yourself, because what follows is tender and raw. It began late yesterday, in that strange hour when the sun falls toward the Bosphorus and paints the water in tones of farewell. A sudden press gathering was announced at a discreet, elegant hotel, the kind where whispers bounce softly off marble. Reporters hurried in as if drawn by a rope they couldn't see, reading the static in the air, knowing in their bones that something weighty was about to be laid bare. The room didn't hum with celebration. It throbbed with stillness, the kind of quiet that happens before a storm understands it is a storm. When the manager representing Gökberk Demirci stepped forward, his expression carried the solemnity of a ceremony you wish weren't necessary. Conversations fell like feathers, then vanished. No sweeteners. No ornaments. Just a voice cutting through the hush like a line in stone. "We are here to end the noise around Gökberk's private life," he began, eyes unwavering toward the cameras, as if refusing to blink would make the words steadier. "Speculation harms both of them, dignity demands clarity. The relationship between Gökberk Demirci and Özge Yağız has reached its conclusion. This is not a pause. It is not a brief storm that will pass. It is an ending." The syllables rang in the room and then sprinted across the world, lighting up screens with a shock that felt almost personal. Those who built digital altars to this love, who clipped photos and replayed interviews to feel the warmth again, found themselves shaking their heads, bargaining with disbelief. How could a bond that seemed to move with one shared heartbeat unravel? How do two people so entwined loosen the knot they tied under brighter skies? Sources close. Unwilling to show their faces out of respect, whispered that no one slammed a door in anger. It wasn't a whim, nor a stormy argument that burned the whole house down in a night. It was time, relentless and practical, rubbing against the delicate threads of a relationship. Work stacked upon work, flights that became routine, the low hum of being watched by everyone. Little by little, oxygen grew thin. Expectations weighed heavier than the shoulders that carried them. What was once a roaring fire learned the language of embers. Yet, as it often goes, there may have been a moment, a single minute when both of them felt the gear catch and stop. The story making round speaks of a dinner that was meant to be quiet, tucked away in a corner nobody would notice. They sat apart just enough for the world to fit between them. A waiter came and left and came again, and still the words had not found their courage. Finally, with eyes glistening the way they do when strength and sorrow shake hands, he told her, "I can't keep pretending we're not slowly breaking each other. I care for you, so much that it hurts to see this love turning us into shadows of who we were." It wasn't a confession of indifference. If anything, it was the sharp bravery of someone who loves enough to set fire to his own comfort. She, they say, listened with tears she didn't bother to hide. A woman who has stood through storms hearing at last the truth the wind had been trying to say. "Maybe you're right, Gökberk. We have fought side by side against noise, time, and distance, but some seas do not calm with willpower. Love alone doesn't always keep the boat afloat." Dear friends of Whispers of Turkish Stars, pause a moment with us. How many of you have lived that scene, where the goodbye is not a punishment but an act of protection? Have you felt a love that burns so bright it threatened to leave only ash behind? Tell us in the comments. Our comments section is not just a hallway of opinions, today it can be a small room of shared memory. And if the way we touch these fragile stories matters to you, that join button is the hand you can place in ours so we continue to do this with care. Back in that austere room, the manager built a shield around Gökberk's name and, by reflection, around hers. "Let me be precise," he said, voice steadied by the need to protect as much as reveal. "No third person stands in this story's shadow. This decision belongs to them both and is grounded in respect, not betrayal. Once, their paths ran side by side. Now they choose different roads." Those words make sense of recent glimpses we revisited in our heads all night. The faraway look he wore at last week's glittering event suddenly reads differently. It wasn't simply work fatigue. It was the weight of a heart that had rehearsed goodbye too many times. The man known for a grin that breaks rooms open showed up with a quiet edge, as if saving his strength for the scene none of us would see. He sought refuge in scripts and sets and the few friends who know him not by roles but by silence. On her side, there is no less ache. People who have stood close enough to hear her whisper say she has been moving gently through the rooms of her life, touching objects as if they might break, finding that everything reminds her of what the future used to look like. She who held the fortress steady, who knew how to be a voice of calm, is now learning how to face mornings without a familiar text and nights without a shoulder folded just right. "I feel hollow," she told someone who should never have repeated it, and yet here we are. We assembled a life piece by piece and watching it loosen is the strangest pain. I do not yet know how to begin without him. Every syllable of that confession carries the sting of endings that are orderly, respectful, and still brutal. When they shared a frame, time seemed to lean forward to watch. Their chemistry was not a rumor, it was a pulse you could sense between words. They were the picture many turned to when they wanted to believe modern love could feel vintage, that the industry's spinning grooves could still hold two people in a slow dance. But stories are harder than posters. Beyond the gleam, there are schedules, families, abrupt goodbyes, flights that land when the other person is waking up somewhere else entirely. What comes next? That's the question circling like a flock that doesn't settle. Joint projects were on the horizon, or so whispers say. Now, do those plans dissolve? Does the script get rewritten? Will a new actress step in opposite him, or will the team wait to see if old ease can become professional serenity? The manager talked around this, the way one does when the truth isn't known yet. The work sphere is different, he offered, and left it there. But anyone who has tried standing side by side with a former love knows this truth, even the strongest professionals must breathe twice before day one. Their social pages have turned into confession walls. Messages pour in from every direction, some heartbroken, some protective, many stunned. An observant corner of the fandom noted something telling: the photos remain. He has not cut the thread of old posts, not yet. Those inclined to hope point to that as a spark hiding in ash. Others say he simply hasn't gathered the grit to sweep away moments that once steadied him. Perhaps both can be true. Deleting is easy, but grief often prefers a slower language. It is uncanny how the lives of people we watch from a distance end up parked beside our own. When they stumble, those who believed in them stumble a little, too. At that dinner, if it happened as told, he supposedly added, "Better we close the door gently now than slam it later and bruise what was beautiful." That kind of maturity leaves a mark. It says, we will try not to become a headline of bitterness. We will hold on to the good even as we turn away. But can a friendship rise from a love that shook the ground? Time holds that answer in its quiet hands. For now, the official word stands, stark as a winter tree. Gökberk, Demirci and Özge Yağız are no longer walking together as a couple. The manager has spoken, and his syllables landed like stones in still water. The story that made so many believe in the old magic has folded itself and slipped into a drawer none of us can open. The lights of the industry continue their spin, but tonight there is a dimness where a star used to flare a little brighter. This will be the talk of days to come, the topic that threads through coffee breaks and midnight messages. We, at Whispers of Turkish Stars, will keep a soft eye on every small movement, a statement, a glance, an unfollow that may or may not come, a project announced or paused. Today, though, we sit inside the hush that follows hard news. What is your heart saying? Do you think a second act is possible, or did the manager's careful words set the final period down? What would you do if work called them to stand opposite each other under hot lights again? Tell us. Your voice is part of this room. Thank you for staying with us in tender hours. Remember to subscribe, leave your sign of support even when the update aches, and, if you wish, join our family by tapping subscribe or that special join key. Until our next story, may it arrive with kinder light. Remember this, even the brightest stars sometimes must learn to shine without a partner beside them. This is Whispers of Turkish Stars, wrapping you in a warm goodbye for tonight, and holding a quiet hope for what tomorrow may bring. Before we fade the music, a last thought lingers like a note that wants to be heard. Love stories do not fail only when they end, sometimes they succeed by choosing an ending that safeguards the grace of what was shared. Perhaps that is the lesson tucked inside this moment, for them and for us. He, grounding himself in work, learning how to hand his heartbreak to the craft that raised him. She, gathering her strength like a shawl, remembering who she was before and who she can be again. Their paths are separating, yes, but not everything must be burned to walk away. Memory can be a garden, tended with care, where gratitude grows beside loss. Fans will keep checking those feeds, will count likes as if they are heartbeats, we know this. They will read into each caption, listen for subtext in every interview, searching for signs the chapter might reopen. And maybe someday two people who knew how to love will know how to meet each other's eyes with peace. Until then, we will not pry at wounds, we will simply witness. Take care of yourselves tonight. In the comments, tell us your own stories of letting go with love, of endings that protected something precious. Let our community be a soft place to land. And if the tenderness of this space matters to you, stand with Whispers of Turkish Stars, so that when joy returns, as it always does, we will be here to celebrate it with you, as loudly and as brightly as we mourn now. Good night, dear friends. We are listening, we are here, and we will keep the light on.